While we were on the break, we were talking about a letter that our producer actually read that was from an atheist written to a Christian. And this is why we want to talk a little bit about witnessing. So I'm going to read a little excerpt from the letter to you guys. This is from the atheist. If you believe one bit that thousands every day were falling into an eternal and unreachable fate, you should be running the streets mad with rage at their blindness. Think about it. Imagine the horrors hell must have in store if the Bible is true. You're just going to allow that to happen and not care about saving anyone but yourself? If you're right, then you're an uncaring, unemotional, and purely selfish individual that has no right to talk about subjects such as love and caring.
Wow.
That's pretty intense.
Yeah.
That's tough.
And it's so true. Like, I don't know about you, but I've been, walking the streets on downtown on a Friday night getting dinner with my friends, and you see, people going to clubs and bars, and Christians, radical Christians, standing on the street, with their megaphones. And that's not working. But what do we do? Do we sit back and wait too, and not say anything? Like, how do you guys think we should go about this?
I think it's tough because especially when you're dealing with somebody who has either an atheist or agnostic point of view, trying to prove God exists is the wrong thing. Because an atheist doesn't want to hear it. They firmly believe that God does not exist, and they can give you every reason in the book, and many of them may even be able to quote you scripture. And so when approaching an atheist, I read a book called End of Reason by Ravi Zacharias, and it's his rebuttal against atheism. And he had some stuff to say in there that I was just like, that makes sense.
Cool.
And it was like, so one of those things, and it was practical. You approach somebody who thinks practically with practicality. Right.
I think that, I definitely respect what this person is saying, but honestly, if we were to do what they were saying, I really feel that most atheists and agnostics would be like, well, now you're trying to shove it down my throat.
Yeah, it's like trying to find a happy medium.
Yeah, there's no win, honestly, I think, in this situation, because they're going to be like, well, why aren't you trying to save me, like this person, or you're shoving it down my throat, and I don't appreciate that.
Yeah.
There's definitely some ways that can be perceived wrong. Like, I know even talking to certain people, they instantly just get this feedback that just because I'm telling them about what I believe in, they think that I think that I'm better than them. And so they kind of get this attitude that's saying just because I believe in something and I want to live a life that Christ has called me to live, they instantly think that I have this mindset where now I'm better than you, so I'm doing this out of obligation because I know I'm better than you.
Yeah,
So
it's really tough. Like, I don't even know where to begin.
Yeah, I think it's about finding a balance, because we're talking about being radical and then the opposite of being radical, which is doing nothing. And I feel like our generation especially, I feel like generations in the past have been very radical, but I feel like our generation can tend to lay back and to almost fit into the culture too much.
Yeah.
And so I feel like for us, I feel like we have to motivate people to not only live a life that represents Christ, but they're not afraid to go out and to have conversations, but to be real and to be relevant with their, people around them and with the culture. And it's just about finding that balance. And I think it is hard, and it's about finding what really works.
Yeah, I think honestly though, I think that you should be so much like Christ and be striving to be so much like Christ that his love comes out of you. And what Christ would do would build relationships with people. Right, go out of their way. That's a loving and caring thing to do. You build relationships with them, and you speak truth and life into their life, you know? And I think then they'll start asking you questions. I feel like that's the only way you can really go about it, because if you really care about these people, you're gonna want to build that relationship with them, you know, and try and reach out to them in that way where they're at.
Right. So you ask yourself the age-old question, WWJD, what would Jesus do?
Yeah.
And you think to yourself, well, okay, Jesus would love. He would do nothing but love this person. I agree, but there are different ways to love somebody. Right. And so to go out on the street and proclaim at the top of your lungs, like you were saying, may seem like to some people like, okay, you're just trying to shove it down my throat. You need to calm down, take about 3 steps back, and we'll be good. But in Mark chapter 1, that's exactly what he did. When Jesus began his ministry after he was baptized, he went out and he went out and just started preaching.
They were very radical back then. And that's something I was thinking about too, because Paul, he talks about no matter, which way that people go about to talk about Christ, even if it's with the wrong intention, Christ is still being preached. And so, I mean, we can say, like, don't do tracts, it's not relevant. Well, it's probably worked for someone.
Right.
So, I mean, different things have worked for different people. So I think it's just finding what works for your culture, what works for the circle around you, and doing that.
Yeah.
I kind of liked what you said though about the Walmart thing, what you did.
Oh,
I mean, I
yeah.
think that's pretty radical to go to a Walmart and like go around like praying and stuff. But honestly, I think God honored that, and he'll tell you to go up to that person, and maybe you're not going to say, hey, you need Jesus, but just say something to them that they need to hear. Because I know God can speak to you and tell you something that they need to hear, whether it be a word of encouragement, whether it just be a hi, whether it just be a smile, because you don't know what's going on in their life that day. And maybe that's what they needed, you know?
Yeah, and the whole idea was to like realize opportunities and moments for evangelism. In Ephesians 6, Paul says, make the most of every opportunity and watch carefully for those. Because the moment that you see an opportunity but don't take hold of it, you're disobeying what God has called you to do in that moment, in that situation. And so when you decide to step back, when God told you to step up, you know, where are you putting yourself now? Or like a lot of times we say, oh, you know, I'm better than that. I can do something better than that. But it's not about doing the big things all the time. It's about going up to somebody, giving them a smile. The other day, somebody came up to me. We were in Siesta Keys, and all we did was smile at somebody we didn't know. Hey, how you doing? Great, beautiful day, awesome, yeah. You know, and like they stopped us and like, you guys aren't from here, are you?
Because like, everyone's mean.
No. Right, well, yeah. And there was just a bunch of tall basketball players walking around. It's like, you're not, you know. But like they recognize that. So it's not just about going out and preaching like Jesus did in Mark 1, but it's about living exactly what you preach. And that's the biggest problem with the church, is that it's run by humans, it's run by hypocrites.
Yeah, I think the thing too is that we don't have to have it figured out, like what you were saying. If you're listening to Christ and if you are actually wanting to do what he's called you to do, he'll speak to you and he'll let you know, like, with this person you have to be bold. With this person, just have a relationship. And if we're listening, then he'll show us what we have to do, and we don't have to have it figured out all the time.
So we're going to continue talking more about this right as soon as we come back.